The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark. A leper came to Jesus and kneeling down begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, he stretched out his hand, touched him, and said to him, "I do will it. Be made clean." The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Then, warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. He said to him, "See that you tell no one anything, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed. That will be proof for them." The man went away and began to publicize the whole matter. He spread the report abroad so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter a town openly. He remained outside in deserted places, and people kept coming to him from everywhere. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord.
Our first reading this morning, taken from the book of Leviticus, deals with a subject we don't hear too much about these days, nor have much experience with. Leprosy, or Hansen's disease, as it is known today, was once feared as a highly contagious and devastating disease. But now we know that it doesn't spread easily, and treatment is very effective. However, if left untreated, this disease can result in the crippling of hands, of feet, paralysis, even blindness. For the Jews in the time of Jesus, leprosy included everything from a very serious to trivial skin diseases. In the book of Leviticus, which we heard in our first reading, the following were all considered forms of leprosy: swellings, scabs, boils, burns, diseases of the scalp, skin discoloration, and even loss of hair. Makes me a little nervous, that one. Leprosy, therefore, was not always precisely what modern medicine classifies as leprosy, but included many other skin diseases which were temporary in nature. One of the jobs of the priest in the time of Jesus was to act like a dermatologist and decide whether a person with a certain skin disease could be contagious. And if it was decided that this person had leprosy, the diseased person now suddenly became homeless, without job or family. He or she had to live outside the community and could not associate with relatives and friends. Lepers were to wear torn garments and had to warn people who might be approaching by crying out, "Unclean, unclean, stay away." Tombs or caves were their homes, and they made their living by begging from those traveling to or from a village or a city. Lepers were also regarded as spiritually unclean, defiled. Their condition was considered a punishment from God. true leprosy rendered its victims desperately ill, so much so that society in the time of Jesus referred to lepers as the living dead. Now, the evangelist St. Mark tells the story of Jesus and the man with leprosy with a great deal of emotion. When the leper walked up to Jesus, he was doing something that was forbidden. He must have been at least a little frightened. Instead of obeying the Mosaic law that relegated him to the margins of society, the leper knelt down in front of Jesus as to one who not only had the power to help him, but could also exercise the freedom to do what the Mosaic law would not and could not allow: to touch and help him. Speaking with the audacity of someone who had no other options, the leper summoned Jesus to reveal his compassion and love in an extraordinary way. "If you wish, you can make me clean." The man had no question whether Jesus could work such a miracle, only whether Jesus wanted to do so, whether Jesus would choose to do so. According to St. Mark, the man's request stirred Jesus to his depths. Even before he could speak, Jesus' hand was reaching out, touching the man's spurned and suffering body, transforming it with tenderness. "I do will it," Jesus said. "Be made clean." One of the aspects of this event, which I believe is so remarkable, was the leper's vulnerable openness and honesty. The man knew his own need like no one else, and he was willing to expose it. While his society refused to approve his actions, the leper found in Jesus one who had no fear of contamination or mortality. The afflicted man's audacity met Jesus' spontaneous tenderness and his utter freedom to love. One would be sore pressed, I think, to find a more beautiful story in all the Gospels. But what does it tell you and me who do not suffer from leprosy? Such a story calls us, among other things, to a recognition of all that we share with that leper. Since his condition was obvious, the society of his day ordered him to hide out of sight. We, on the other hand, are quite adept at hiding our weakness and the unsightly, sinful aspects of our life. Perhaps the worst of it is that we can hide them from ourselves, believing in the image we project rather than the truth of who we are. The leper would remind us that Christ can only touch and heal what we bring before him. If we don't bring our genuine self, we will never truly encounter the Lord Jesus. And the leper might add that we never hear of Jesus reaching out and touching someone who was self-sufficient, but only those who needed him. Our coming before God with a willingness to be nothing other than ourselves and to expose our need for God is one of the challenges the leper places before each one of us this morning. We may do that in private prayer, in the sacrament of reconciliation or the Holy Eucharist, or with others. St. Mark told this story in a way that points out that the time and place do not really matter. What does matter is that, like the leper, we dare to have the courage to place our truest self before our God, as well as our vulnerability to allow God to touch and transform us. Whether we ask for healing or forgiveness or inspiration, we can trust what Jesus said to the leper in today's gospel. I do will it. Be healed.